I know you've heard similar sad stories before, but in our case, it does have a somewhat happy ending because we have both fully come to find our true selves. I say somewhat because all divorces come with their own struggles, but in our case, we are faring pretty well since we get along and the kids are doing fine. After about 2 years of fumbling through darkness after the faith crisis, the divorce, and all the chaos and confusion that these situations bring, trying to rebuild a whole new life, really, and make sense of it all, I am at peace now. Did I navigate through rough waters while all this was happening? Absolutely. It was very rough waters for a while. But we are all at a good place now, so it is worth sharing. Again, this is all with the intention to give hope to those out there who may possibly be in the midst of the chaos of faith crisis, on the verge or in the midst of a divorce or after the divorce and still in the confusion phase, or whatever else I can give a little hope for. Who is this podcast mainly for? It is mostly for people lost in the midst of their faith transition. I say mainly because anyone else is free to join and partake of the fun and wisdom, but who I had in mind while doing this are those of you who are still struggling as you navigate with family, partners, friends, community, who believe differently and have a hard time with your worldview changing from what they were accustomed to and are not always able to understand what you're going through and may have the weirdest reactions to these changes occurring. It takes some time to navigate through it all, and it helps to learn from those who have gone through it. At the same time, it's important to also try to put ourselves in their place, since they are still in our old worldview paradigm. I admit that at the earlier stages of my faith transition, I had a hard time with that. I was not very careful and somewhat selfish in my desire to have everyone around me see things the way I did. Ultimately, we must accept that it is a choice and we must respect what everyone's personal choice is as far as wanting to receive certain information or not. There is a lot of apprehension behind receiving new knowledge that could really change your life for better or worse. So it's important to only give what is asked and not force onto others knowledge they are not ready to receive or don't want to. I have been lost in the midst of my faith transition, in the discovery stage, the shock, the confusion, the research, trying to put the toothpaste back in the tub, trying to hold the dam exploding under me, climbing up the mudslide. I have seen all my shelves crash down and I've gone a little crazy with the chaos around me. But after the storm calmed down and I made space in my mind as I cleaned up all the unnecessary clutter, taking too much space in my mind, I got over the loss, the anger. I slowly became more indifferent and finally settled with the acceptance of what had been my beliefs and how differently I believed now. Being at the end part of the faith transition now allows me to have better perspective, and hopefully I can help in small ways those who are currently struggling in the earlier stages. Now, these earlier stages, loss, confusion, loneliness, anger, pain, loss of identity, community, family, partner at times, can be very devastating, as well as the mental and physical stress. So I will do my best in the coming episodes to illustrate what happened to me in these different stages and what helped me navigate and move on. I will give you some of the resources I used that were very helpful to me with the hope that you'll find them useful as well. I know there are plenty of resources out there and I will list some below, and feel free to also add yours in the comments as well as questions you may have. I will definitely take the time to give a shout out to everyone who has helped me in the process, either in person with the content they put out, with online resources and online communities. There is a lot available out there, but I also think it's nice to have new voices coming on. I think that the same exact message can be shared by different people in different ways that may or may not speak to you. I also want to make it very clear that this podcast will not be about bashing the Mormon faith. I have already done that in my earlier angry phases, and you can read all about it in the articles I published if you want to. I don't retract anything I said in these op-eds that I wrote, but I will choose in this podcast to focus on building strong foundations and reconstruction of spirituality, or simply finding peace of mind after a faith crisis. For the thousands of you who have watched or listened to John Dillon interviewing me for the Mormon Stories Podcast back in 2015, you'll find out the rest of the story after I left in this podcast. I was on the verge of leaving the church when I did the interview with John, but I was still kind of hopeful for some miraculous changes to happen in the church. I must say, though, that one success story I have had is when I wrote an op-ed right after the policy about children with gay parents were not able to be baptized anymore. And my ex, his sister, who lives in Utah, and he is a lesbian, has 4 daughters who were active in the church at the time that policy came out. I mean, they were devastated. We were devastated. Everyone was so hurt. And thousands of people were hurt by this. And I was outraged. And so I published an op-ed in the Salt Lake Tribune titled, "Love Did Not Create This LDS Policy and It Won't Survive." And that was in July 26, 2017, a little bit after the policy came out. Now, if you've paid attention or care, you've heard that in April 4th, 2019, the church reversed the 2015 policy to reallow every child to be baptized in the church. I was like, yep, that was my prophecy that came to pass. I felt really good about that. Now, right before we left for Singapore, I fully stopped attending church and didn't really care much after that. I did write a last op-ed published in May 2016 in the Salt Lake Tribune titled, "What I Have Learned as I Transitioned from My Faith." And I was kind of like, this is it. See you, goodbye. I had originally called it "What I Have Learned as I Transitioned Away from the Faith of My Childhood." And I guess it was too long, so they changed it to "What I Have Learned as I Transitioned from My Faith." I'll just read to you a short part that many enjoyed and reshared in different platforms. I wrote, "I jumped off the cliff I was told my entire life to stay away from, and I discovered I had wings. I started soaring, and the view from where I stand is magnificent as I discovered tastes and colors I never knew existed. Fear, shame, and guilt no longer determine my actions. The threat of eternal damnation is lost on me. I believe we create our own heaven or hell right here on earth. And if there is an afterlife, whatever we created will follow us. I am neither special nor chosen, like I was told all along growing up. I am just like everyone else, trying to make sense of this unfair yet beautiful world we live in." If you want to read the whole article, I put the link in the notes below as well. Just like in any life story, things are constantly changing and evolving. The evolving part is what I really want to share with you. What happens after 30 plus years dedicated to the Mormon faith, and how do you rebuild your life after that? I hope my personal process of finding peace of mind will benefit some of you listening. This is really for people who are a bit in limbo and still have lots of questions, not knowing how to get over the hurt and settle at a more peaceful place after the earthquake of the faith crisis. It takes some time, and it helps to learn from those who have gone through it. I do not assume that everyone transitioning from their faith needs to leave the church. I just want to encourage those who feel lost, have a hard time finding their own voice, and following their heart and mind to do so. It takes courage and strength to follow your own truth and step away from all the shame, fear, and guilt that is so prominent in religious settings. I really want to emphasize the fact that you are not alone in this journey, and there are lots of resources out there to help you. Because a spiritual journey is something very personal, I think that the transition is ongoing. We just settle into a more peaceful place as we strive to acquire more wisdom. I do realize that not everyone is at the same stage in the faith transition. This is something I'd actually be very interesting to find out, so feel free to share what stage you're in the comments below or on my Facebook page, The Odd Mormon Girl. It doesn't matter what faith you're in. If you want to share your experience, your transitioning experience, or where you're at, I'd love to hear that. This podcast is not just for Mormons, the faith that I transitioned away from to build my own spiritual ground. It can be really any faith. So I'm interested to know if you are transitioning from, a different faith, what it is. And if you don't know, if you're not exactly sure, you can also check out James Fowler's Stages of Faith, and I have attached a link below as well. So I've gone through the shock, disappointment, anger, loss, depression, indifference, until finally I found peace and my own sets of beliefs, unattached to any particular church or faith. So if I can help you even just a little, if you are not at the peace stage yet, I will have reached my objective. If you have found peace, I hope that you'll still find some interesting things in the content that I will provide, and also feel free to share in the comments how you got there. Let me tell you what I'll be covering in the next episodes, and these are just a few of the topics. Finding peace of mind after a faith crisis, raising children without a church, taking care of our mental health, and specifically depression, which is a topic near to my heart, divorce, dating, taking care of our physical health, what does a healthy, happy sex life looks like? And yes, I can tell you because I feel very strongly about this topic, and sex makes me happy. Happiness routine versus trying to find balance, personal continuing education, cultivating a healthy relationship with money by a non-expert, cultivating the Hakuna Matata mentality, or some call it the art of NGAF, not giving a. That's right. Feel free to comment below. Let me know if you like this episode, if you want more, what you would want me to share first, what you're interested to hear. I can always change the order of publication. So feel free also to put your email in the little box below so that you can be notified when a new episode comes out. I will have occasional guests on, and I will share relevant comments and questions that I receive as well. Thank you for joining me today. Remember that life has amazing things in store for you if you don't give up. I'm Julienna. This is the Faith Transition Podcast. I will see you next time.